Welcome to the InitiativeOne Leadership Podcast, where we work with leaders to maximize their impact and to transform their lives. We are delighted for you to join us today. My name is Dr. Fred Johnson. I'm the founder here at InitiativeOne. We are glad that you have joined us for our podcast. I'm really enthusiastic about who is joining us today. He's someone that's near and dear to my heart. He is a colleague. I've known him since he was a little blonde-haired chap. He's grown a little bit since then. I'd like to introduce to you Nick Metler. Nick is one of the key members of our leadership team. He's in charge of all of our social media. He is what we call the old man of our company. He is an old soul, deep in wisdom, and profoundly current in the latest trends in leadership. Welcome, Nick. We're glad to have you, buddy.
Thank you, Fred. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you virtually all the way from Knoxville, Tennessee today.
Thank you, buddy. And go Vols, huh?
Amen. Go Vols.
So, Nick, I want to ask you a question. To be an effective leader today, with the generations that are now entering the workforce, I mean, you've got 40 more years of really vital work before you even think about retirement.
Yes.
And there are things that you, and broadly speaking, in your generation, that you look for as you determine whether I want to connect my heart and my hands and my feet and my soul to this company. What would you say to someone like me who is trying to learn a new world in dealing with teammates? What would you say to us are essentials in order to engage and win the hearts of millennial and the wired generation?
Yes, and I think something you said there is important. I think it's very much holistic now, in terms of, you mentioned the heart, mind, soul, feet, all of that. People want to move with everything in them in my generation and have that passion engaged fully. And as young leaders enter the workplace, I think they look for the transparency and buy-in. They want to be a part of the decision-making process. I know that you've talked a lot with me about leaders used to kind of hide things or maybe not engage people, and we want to be a part of the conversation. Part of that is, I would say, the rise of social media. Everyone has buy-in on everything. There, you can find anything, you can chime in, you can comment. And so that interactive piece of leadership is really key today. And so leaders need to kind of, I guess, the expectation for young leaders is that they're a part of that process, really from beginning to end in some way. Maybe it's not their decision necessarily, but they want to be involved in the process of decision making.
Well, let me play devil's advocate. And you and I didn't prepare for this, so whatever Nick's response is not pre-recorded, so to speak. So I'm an older, skeptical, boomer, older millennial leader. And I go, Nick, that sounds like an entitled young leader right now who wants it all. And when I was coming up, I had to keep my mouth shut for 3 years before I ever said anything. And you don't get the corner office within the first 3 years.
Absolutely.
What would you say to that?
I think that it's about creating a win-win environment. And I don't think the expectation is to be the key voice in the organization, or at least that's not my expectation. But it's more, how can we contribute and row in the same direction to win together? Because there are things I know that I glean from you every day, Fred, and that there's a lot to be learned for me that I have no idea in my less years on this earth. and I've got a lot to really unpack before I can really take that next step in my leadership journey. But I think that there are insights at every level of the organization to where people can learn from one another. And I think that that's more the mindset and the attitude that people should take on, because if we're all learning from each other, we're all getting better together.
So you're not exactly a young chick. I mean, you have your own MBA. As we talked about before, you're a very wise person, well beyond your chronological age. Already, as you have already begun to make a big impact on our organization and on those that we serve, what have been some of the biggest learnings for you that we need to capitalize on as an organization?
Yes, I would say some of the biggest things I've had to learn is to know that I don't always have to have the answer. That's something that I've struggled with probably from a young age, and part of that I think is generational. Even I've got a smartphone in my pocket right now that I can look pretty much anything up in the world and find it, and I've kind of prided myself on that at times to where I can get it, I can figure it out, and there's a mentality in me that I really like about that. But I think for me, not knowing the answer means that I need other people in my life to help me find that answer. Um, and as a, I'm a remote employee here at InitiativeOne, and sometimes not being in the office means that I'm not, I can be siloed off at times. And so really for me, I've had to learn to open up, ask questions, and engage with people at a deeper level than maybe I'm naturally predispositioned to do. I'm an introvert. Despite my talking here today, I enjoy silence. I enjoy getting away and staring off into space from time to time. But I think not knowing all the answers, I can think back to even my striving in that a story. I was talking with a pastor in Canada actually, and we were discussing different situations that we were going through, and he was throwing questions out there, and I kept trying to solve his problem for him in a sense. And he responded back to me, Nick, it's okay that we don't have a solution to this yet. You don't have to keep trying. And I think leaning into the tension of that, I know our company is growing very rapidly right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty around that in terms of what's this going to look like? How are we going to continue to move forward and continue this growth? And I think that uncertainty can feel uncomfortable. I know it does for me, but it's leaning into that and knowing that we don't have to have all the answers right now. We will get there, and if we lean on each other and grow together, then it'll most likely turn out okay in the end. At least that's my optimistic view on most everything, is that if we keep pushing, keep moving forward, keep rowing together, then it'll turn out all right.
So Nick, give this old bird some advice.
Okay.
What are keys if I'm going to develop a leadership team with multi-generations? What are things that you feel from your experience and your vantage point that are absolutely essential to win a team that you get their best out of them?
For me, leadership is truly always about humility. I think entering into any space, it's paramount that leaders come with a humble attitude. And
Could you explain that? Could you explain
Yeah.
that more?
Yes, I think that I've even struggled with the definition of humility from time to time, that it isn't that you aren't confident in who you are or confident in your ability, but the attitude is that I'm not here to dominate necessarily. I'm here to learn from everybody else in the room, but also offer my expertise where it's needed. That's kind of I would say what my definition of humility is. It's not shying away from the opportunities that present themselves. It's really positioning yourself to take advantage of that, but also looking to lift up everyone else and put them in positions to succeed as well. Because I'm not perfect. I don't think anyone is, but we all have gifts that can align and mesh together. Like different pieces to the puzzle for problem solving. And so I think it starts with humility, and also a commitment to lifelong learning. That's probably my next biggest takeaway.
You know, that there's a lot of meat there. I'm hearing you say to older leaders like me who want to be relevant, who want to stay fresh, that you have to move your role from leader as teller to leader as mentor and facilitator.
Yes.
My role is to create an environment where all of these folks with different gifts, strengths, and experiences and lenses of how they view the world, to create an environment where they feel safe to express those and to use them. Am I getting that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's that psychological safety piece that we always talk about here. It's you're not going to feel safe if you feel that the people in the room don't respect you or value your opinion. And it doesn't mean everyone's going to agree with everything, but it means that it's okay for it to be said, and that would be valuable to the group because everyone in the group's valuable.
So there's one question I want you to spend a little bit more time on.
Yes.
There's this perception that it's kind of arrogant. It's not humility. It's kind of arrogant for a new leader to come in, a new younger leader, and to want to have such an impact so quickly, want to have a voice at the table so quickly. How would you respond to that? Would you want to shape that narrative differently? How would you respond to that question?
Yes, and for me personally, I think I definitely wanted to share, but I also wanted to understand the organization first. And so that made me hesitant to jump in maybe right away, because I wanted to know where does my voice matter? And I think that piece of the psychological safety is where that opened up a little more quickly with our team, because I felt that you all wanted me to chime in and help solve problems. But I think that it's more to address your question more directly. I think it's more of a how do we position everyone, regardless of generation, to know that as roles change or people age or different things like that, the gifts we offer can change too. I think you touched on this with your mentorship piece. I don't necessarily have the ability to draw on the wisdom that I have. Though you may have described me as a wise old man earlier, I only have 26 years. I don't have the wealth of wisdom that you have in your life and in the experiences that you've had. And so learning and coming to the table to just that, I can't necessarily bring that all together and make that actionable in a way that someone like you can. And so, asking for a seat at the table is maybe that's a little quick for someone just joining the organization. But at the same time, I think that framing that more as a learning experience and the attitude, it's not even coming into the organization as a teller, it's coming into the organization as a learner, and we can learn together. It's not about telling the higher ups, hey, you need to do this better, and trying to fix everything, because that's not the way that fixing happens. That's not the way that cultures change. It's not pointing the finger at everybody else. It's more, what can I do to take the next step in leading this organization and leading myself so that we're all better together.
Well, I'm hearing from this that this whole humility piece, humility in a team does not say, I want to have the last word. I want to win the day. I want to be the one with the power. Humility says, I want to understand you as my teammate. I want to understand where you're coming from. And I want to see how I can maximize your gifts so that we're better together. But I also hear something that I don't hear from a lot of 26-year-olds, that before you go in, wanting to exercise your voice, exercise your ears first and ask, I do have something to say, but I want to know who you are first. And that is an act of respect. And so what would you say to your peers coming in? What would the approach that would gain the most credibility and trust with leaders like myself? What would you say to them?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's listening, and it's also something that you've hammered home in me that I've learned a lot from is just to begin with positive intent. I've really tried to drill down that I think everybody really is trying their best in most situations, and that best can come out in a lot of different ways. And so listening to people, understanding where they are, understanding that just because we're at the workplace doesn't mean that things don't happen outside of the workplace that impact us every day. And change is a hard process, and it doesn't always happen as quick as we like. Many of the companies people are entering into have been around for a long time, and that doesn't make them any easier to change. And so you've got to start with understanding people, and people are people. We all have needs, wants, feelings, emotions, and they sometimes we get in our own way as a result of all of that. But if we seek to understand first, seek to listen, then I think that we'll have a playing field that feels a lot more manageable for us, and we can look each other in the eyes and understand that we all care about each other.
That's fantastic. Well, Nick, I didn't know exactly what you were going to say, but I knew what you were going to say was rich, and it has been rich. Thank you for the wisdom that you shared with us. Thank you for the insight. There's a lot of meat in this podcast about how to do things that are win-wins for all generations in a multi-generational team. We appreciate you. I want to say to our audience, if you want to check out our expertise in how we help multi-generational teams be the best that they can be in today's culture, check us out at InitiativeOne. Send us a note at info@InitiativeOne. Check out our monthly think tanks. We just would love to build a relationship. So reach out. And it's a pleasure and an honor for you as our audience member to be with us. Nick, I want to say to you, thank you, my friend, for sharing your time and effort and your experience that already at age 26 has become very much accelerated. And we appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate the opportunity that you've given me.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a terrific week.